Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Community Report 73. This was published on the 30th of April 2023. And this report focuses on farming and fertilizer. And I'll be completely upfront. This is a report I've been really looking forward to because this is going to change the game completely. Especially with respect to the fact that you're going to have to make the fertilizers and deliver it to the farms, and also the fact that you will no longer be able to say this field is being placed and it's going to earn me 300 tons of crops. Now, what I'm going to do with this report, because it's got a number of sections, I'm going to read through each section and then we'll go back and look at the pictures. So let's jump straight in. It says, "Greetings, dear comrades of the Soviet Republic and all the fans of the game. As the seasonal cycle turns in our virtual land, teams with life, we toast to the astonishing progress in farming. In the real world and our game alike, the prosperity of our republic hinges on effective farming management. Bearing this in mind, we are thrilled to unveil revolutionary changes in the farming mechanics of our game. These enhancements will not only infuse greater realism and also ensure enjoyment for players for all levels, while maintaining the spirit of our uplifting Soviet-style game." I'm just going to scroll down. So this first paragraph is quite straightforward. It says, "Revolution in farming, tractor attachments. The first visible changes of our glorious farming revolution will be the addition of our new tractor attachments. Tractors will no longer march into action empty-handed and will automatically equip the necessary attachments for our task, mirroring the tireless spirit of our Soviet workers." And we'll just take a quick look at the picture, because this is going to be the thumbnail. So we got a tractor here with a big plow on the back. Now, some mods already got that, so it's going to be interesting to see how that will actually operate. I think that tractor in the background is with the attachment actually dropped. So moving down to the next paragraph, it says, "Nutrient level and field fertility. To bolster the farming experience, we've introduced a new nutrient level bar for each field, which directly influences fertility rates. Higher fertility means higher yields, making nutrient management an essential part of the game, as crucial as managing our Republic's resources in the farm window. Players will find a new setting for minimal field fertility. Fertility will diminish each year when something grows in the field, and players may need to let fields rest to recover, just as our comrades rest to regain their strength. Fertility management will be a key aspect of efficient farming, reflecting our Soviet Republic's dedication to productivity." Now, I'm quite intrigued by the idea of letting fields rest, but I'm not exactly sure how you would actually specify that, unless you just say don't farm this cycle. Anyway, I was going to read the rest and then we'll go back and take a look at the picture. "You can also see that there will be a new storage added to the farms for liquid and biofertilizer. Here, comrades, is where you must tackle the issue that we and all players must face. Currently, the buildings that already exist in your republics cannot automatically receive the storage. You currently need to rebuild all farms to make them work with fertilizers. We are striving to find a solution for the vanilla buildings, but then there are modded farms which also need to be updated. What we will try to do is that when a building type will have a new storages, those will be automatically added while loading an older save. In this case, when modders will update their buildings, players will receive these storages." I think that effectively confirms the assumption that I've already made, that when this update drops, I'm going to restart. Now, I know the devs are striving to be able to make old games save compatible, but my argument is that I would expect to restart simply because we're going to have a completely new infrastructure, because we're going to have to supply the fertilizer. So let's just read the final paragraph. "Another aspect that may affect mods is the introduction of tractor attachments. We are aware that there are some modded vehicles that already have deep plow attachments on their models. To ensure the visual compatibility with the new update, these attachments will have to be adjusted by removing them from the existing models. We understand that this may require additional effort and it will be necessary to maintain the integrity of the game." Possibly means that some mods will be broken. That's going to make my life interesting, because I think I've got virtually every tractor that's available in the mod list. Anyway, let's just go up and take a look at the picture. And what we got here is we've got two panels. The one on the left is actually a small field, and the one on the right is a medium farm. So we'll look at the small field first. Now, below field size, it says fertility 82.53%. And then below, and we got the usual bars: sowing, growing, harvesting. And then it says actual nutrient level. I'm assuming that the fertility of 82.53% will mean that if you've got a, say, a large farm with 300, we know at the moment produces 300 tons of crops. That means that if this, with this setting, you'd only get 82% of that 300. I'm not going to calculate it. Now, the thing that does intrigue me is whether we can get the fertility above 100% so that we can get excess crops. Because if when you think that the actual nutrient level is only 24.76 and we're getting 82%. So say you assume that if you could get the actual nutrient level up to, say, 100%, that must take this well over 100%. That's just me making an assumption. So we'll look on the right-hand panel. What we've got here, we got a setting called minimum fertility. I'm guessing that maybe minimum fertility is basically says that don't, if it drops below this value, then you do not grow crops. That could be very interesting, because of course that would be, you need to balance this setting, because if you're wanting to get at least some crops, you may need to drop this right down. But the price will be is by doing that. Well, upon reflection, one of that minimum fertility is when the fertilizer is actually spread on individual fields. So then that means that the game will decide on which fields will receive the fertilizer, rather than just going out and fertilizing everyone. Anyway, that's just me speculating. And then below that, we've got an oil tank import for liquid fertilizer and a big garbage container import for, I presume this will be the biofertilizer. So it looks like we've covered the farm. So now that looks relatively straightforward. And so the next bit is liquid fertilizer. It says now we want to introduce the two types of fertilizer. Liquid fertilizer produced from chemicals in a specialized plants and could be transported by oil tank vehicles to farms in a true display of our Republic industrial prowess. Tractors will distribute it to the fields during the growth process using a fertilizer attachment. Now, the interesting parts of this statement is the fact that the oil tankers will be able to deliver the liquid fertilizer to the farm, and that we will actually, and the fact that the fertilizer will be applied during the growing process. We'll come back to the pictures of it. So this growing cycle would be plowing, fertilizing, and then harvesting. And the final little bit down it is, by applying liquid fertilizers, players can raise the nutrient level and the fertility of the field to up to 200%, allowing increased crop yields by contributing to the prosperity of our republics. So it's liquid fertilizer that will push up the fertility to 200%. I'm assuming that if we can get it up that high, it means a large field, we could get 600 crops per year. Now that's interesting. One, because that means you don't need so many farms, but two, that actually puts a new dimension onto calculating storage requirements for a farm, because at the moment you calculate on the static values. Now, if your fertility is rising and you're going to push it up, interesting. Anyway, let's just take a quick look at the tractor here. It's got a nice little spray attachment on the back, and you can see that the crops are starting to grow. So that, and you can, just in the background here, you can also see a tanker that must have dropped off at the farm. In fact, it looks also like there's a garbage truck coming in as well. And then we'll just look at this picture here. Yeah, what we got here is a tanker. You can see it, so they've just added it to the tanker's carry capacity. So yeah, this is a similar picture, isn't it? You've got the tractor in the foreground here. You got that there. And we've got on the right hand, we've got a panel for a fertilizer factory. So that was a fertilizer factory in the background, not the farm. And what this is doing, this needs 0.63 tons of chemicals to produce 35 tons of liquid fertilizer. And that's a pretty good ratio, but at the same time, you don't know how much of that you've got to dump on a field to get the fertility up. So you could still go through a lot of chemicals, because that's still over half a ton a day. And then we got an export tank, we got a warehouse import, and we got internal garbage container stand. Hazardous waste. Now that's interesting, because if this is producing hazardous waste, that means we've got to take that away and dump it. That explains why the garbage truck was coming in the background of this picture, this garbage truck. And what that means is, well, we're going to have to think about how we're going to get rid of hazardous waste. Well, I've got no idea. I'm not going to speculate. We're just going to move down to the biofertilizer. Biofertilizer or solid fertilizer has an advantage over liquid fertilizer as it lasts longer in the soil. Tractors will distribute it in the fields before sowing or after harvesting using different types of equipment. So that's an interesting change in the cycle. By applying the biofertilizer, players can raise field fertility up to 170%. When combined with liquid fertilizer, it can result to 250% fertility, exemplifying the power of the Soviet Republic's advancement. Now, this is quite interesting because if I go back to this here, it says when with waste management turned on. Now, what that implies to me is that if you're farming, then you're going to have to provide fertilizer. If you're playing with waste management disabled, then your only option will be liquid fertilizer because you won't be able to make the biofertilizer unless there's a way that you could buy it. But the advantage to get the maximum out of a farm will be to play with waste management enabled. I really like this idea that you could get up to 250% fertility by combining the top. But you can see the biofertilizer itself is only 170%. So it means that the liquid fertilizer will be more efficient, but the biofertilizer will be less efficient but will last longer. Anyway, let's just take a quick look at the picture. What we got here is a garbage truck delivering fertilizer. That poses an immediate question in my head about whether we'll be able to set a distribution office up that's got garbage trucks in it to deliver the fertilizer from the composting plant to the farms. Although I'd like to assume that there would be a way that you could store this compost in a big area for collection rather than just have to keep collecting it from the composting plant. Now, the composting plant, it needs 30 tons of biological waste and 0.075 tons of chemicals. So you're still going to need chemicals. Get 25 tons of fertilizer. Now, below that, it actually says there's a processing efficiency. So 80% of biological, 100% of fertilizer. Now, I'm assuming this will be a characteristic of the actual composting plant. Now, below that, we've actually got two exports. We've got big garbage container, mixed waste, which I assume will be for the garbage collection. And then we got big garbage container export fertilizer like that. Now, I'm quite interested in the fact that this is specified by containers. So I do wonder whether these will be picked up by these garbage trucks as complete containers, rather in a similar way to we move uranium fuel around. So rather than picking up minimal loads, you will be moving loads in that point of view. And I would guess that each one of these containers may contain, say, like about 5 tons of fertilizer, because we've got 1.5 here and it says 9.85. So this is going to be quite a complex process, and I assume that the mixed waste can then be shipped on for further processing. So we'll just go down to this very small program at the bottom. It says maximizing field fertility. This update will revolutionize in-game farming, enable players to reap more crops from the same area. However, the crop yields may fluctuate year to year, requiring careful planning and storage management, much like managing our republic during the times of change. You are not kidding, guys. I think this could even have an influence on positioning farms, because farms at the moment, I quite often put them in fairly remote areas. So now if you've got to deliver the fertilizer, you've got to make it also going to really increase the amount of chemicals that your game's going to need. I think that could be the big issue. So we'll just move down to this last section. I don't think this relates to the game. It says recent Rotem Heck YouTube copyright claims. Some YouTubers recently encountered copyright claims on their videos due to the game's soundtrack. Rest assured that this is merely a test. The author of the soundtrack, Rotem Heck, is managing digital albums online and setting up copyright protection to prevent unauthorized use of the music in non-game related content. The outcome was more strict than anticipated, and now the issue has been resolved. We apologize for any inconvenience and recommend applying proper settings to clarify that your video is game related. Your understanding of the matter is greatly appreciated, as it supports the hard work of our creators and ensure that the spirit of the game remains authentic. Yeah, I must admit, I got a very odd copyright strike. It wasn't a claim one. It was just saying that I was unable to monetize the video, and it's quite understandable. And the what I like to look at it is from the positive side of here. But I actually know now who the composer of the music is, and I did check him out actually on his website. He sounds a very interesting person, and that will also explain that in the recent video that the music, which I normally allow to play very faintly in the background, has disappeared completely. So what I'll do is I'll put that back in again. As you can see, that these updates are amassing into something far more significant than anticipated. We are far from done, comrades. We acknowledge that adapting to these changes will be challenging. We have an unwavering faith in our comrades' ability. After all, the ultimate objective is to have fun while playing this game, exploring our virtual Soviet republics and forging ahead with the spirit of progress. Stay safe, and until the next time, happy gaming. Well, guys, that came out a lot more complex than I was expecting. I was expecting just to have a one set of fertilizer which you was put on the fields every year with no settings, so it was just like would just be part of the normal farming cycle. Now this is going to require a complete change in planning of our farming, and I can also see that there's going to be a lot of testing required to see how to get the maximum fertility, and more importantly, what it takes to maintain the fertility. Personally, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time to do that, but I'm pretty sure I know one person on YouTube who will be giving us an extensive tutorial, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what solutions he comes up to. Anyway, this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed this report, and until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.